Hello, third grade. I hope that you are excited to use clay to form our Pinch Pot pets today. Before we get started, let's take a look at the materials that we will be using today. So I have my mess mat on the table to make sure that the mess from the clay stays on the mat and not the table. I have a little container right here that has slip in it, which is like a watery clay. We'll use that like glue. I also have a wooden skewer that's going to help us form our Pinch Pot pet. And then of course I have some clay right here. So before we actually get started forming the clay, we have to do something very important with this clay. This clay is special. It goes into a kiln in order to permanently harden, which means it will never be this soft, squishy clay again after we put it into the kiln. It's like when you take cookie dough, put it into the oven and bake it into a cookie. It'll never be cookie dough again. It's just a cookie until you eat it. So one of the things that we have to do with this clay is do something called wedging it. And to wedge it, you can take your ball of clay and you can just squish it together in your hands like this. And we want to do that for about 30 seconds. What wedging does is make sure that the clay does not have any air bubbles in it. The kiln does not like air bubbles in the clay. It could break our project if there's air in it, so we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make sure that our project comes out of the kiln in great shape. So again, you just need to move it around in your hands like this for about 30 seconds. I'm going to do it for just a couple more. Sometimes when you're doing this, you might even hear a little air bubble popping, and that's how you definitely know you have done it correctly. All right, so after we have wedged the clay, we're able to get started building. Since we are making our Pinch Pot pets, we're going to make a Pinch Pot first and then add the different parts of our animal to it, which means we don't need this entire piece of clay to make our Pinch Pot. I'm going to pull off maybe a little bit less than half of my clay. I'm going to put that off to the side so I can use that to make the ears and parts of the face for my koala. With the rest of it, we're going to make our Pinch Pot. So to start, you're going to take your clay and you're going to roll it into mostly a ball. It does not have to be perfectly round or perfectly smooth. We just want a good shape to start off with. All right, like this is fine. I've got a couple little bumps and smudges over here, and that's totally fine. In order to make our Pinch Pot, we are going to have our fingers on the top, our thumbs at the bottom, and really, really gently, we're going to push our thumbs up. Our fingers are supporting the clay on the outside. And again, really gentle. You don't want to go so fast that you make a hole in the clay. That wouldn't be good. But then you're going to keep pinching it in order to form the shape of a pot. That's why it is called a Pinch Pot. You pinch it nice and slowly. Now I want you to notice I'm pinching up instead of out. We want more of a bowl shape instead of a plate shape. All right, so the fingerprints are fine, but I want you to notice the walls of my Pinch Pot are not too thin, and I got a pretty decent amount of height, okay? And it looks like a bowl. It does not look like a plate, all right? So after you have that, the opening is going to be on the bottom, right? We're going to put the different parts of our face and like wings, tails, that kind of thing onto the outside of it. So after you have formed it, you can take a moment just with your fingers and really gently smooth it out. Make sure it's nice and smooth and ready to add your pieces onto. I'm going to speed through this part and check back with you in just a second. All right, so I, did my best to smooth it out. I don't think that the clay needs to be perfect. It is very soft, so we're gonna see some of our fingerprints in it, but I am happy with the shape. So I'm going to set that off to the side so I can focus on making the other parts of my animal with the extra clay that we used. So it's going to be different for everybody because we all picked different animals, but you want to use your extra clay in order to form your pieces. So I am going to do a koala, which means I know I want 2 slightly bigger pieces of clay for the ears because a koala does have pretty big ears, and then I have a little bit of extra to do some eyes, nose, and then maybe a little tail in the back. What I would recommend doing is making each of the parts of your animal first. Have them all together, and then we will talk about how to attach those pieces. Some of us might remember, but we want to review it because that's always really important. So I'm going to make my extra pieces and check back with you in just a second. All right, so I have my eyes, my nose, this is gonna be my little tail. I have the ears, and then I had some extra clay, which is totally fine. We'll just put it back in the bag. Somebody else can use that. All right, so a couple things that I wanna make sure that you notice. For something bigger like the ears, I just tapped the part where I know I'm going to attach it onto the table to make a nice flat edge. It's going to be easier to attach those then. Something else that I want you to pay attention to, I don't have anything that's too teeny tiny and definitely not too thin or too skinny. Something that's really thin or skinny is going to break really easily, and we don't want that to happen. We want to make sure that our items are nice and sturdy so that when we put them onto the clay, they're going to stay there and that nothing is going to break. So make sure that you're being careful when you are forming everything. All right, so what I want to do next, I have all of my pieces, so I want to attach them. Now we know if we just attach, like try and stick it to something, two pieces of clay together, they're not going to stay, and it's definitely not going to be strong enough. So we have to go through a method of attaching things that I call the 4 S's. So for this, you'll need the slip and you'll need the skewer, and of course you'll need your pieces that you are attaching. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is decide where I'm going to put the pieces, and of course I want the ears to be even. I don't want it to be lopsided. All right, so I am actually going to draw a tiny little line so that I know where to make my score marks. Okay, so the first S is score, and that is when you take your skewer and you are going to do a series of small lines where you are going to attach pieces of clay, and you are going to do it to both pieces of clay wherever they're touching. So that's where the ears are going to go on the head. But I am also, and I made this nice flat area for myself so I can attach it easily, I'm also going to do score marks on both of the ears. Okay, so the first S is done, score. The second S is slip. Now, with this special clay that goes into the kiln, we have some clay mixed with water. It's just like a watery slip. This is going to act like our glue. I am going to just use my finger to spread a little bit of slip onto all of the score marks. If you would prefer, you can use a popsicle stick that I have available to you. That's up to you. The mess does not really bother me. We're already getting messy. Okay, so I put the slip on right on top of where I put my score marks. So that's the second S. The third S is stick. And of course, that's an easy one. You are going to stick those two pieces together, and you can already tell it's staying much easier than it did before. The last S is smooth. So you might see I had a little bit of slip kind of oozing out from where I stuck those two pieces together. You can clean it up and make sure that those things are really stuck by just using your finger to smooth and blend those two pieces together. There is no line there anymore where those two pieces were. Now they're one line. Now they're one piece and you can't see the line as much. So I'm also going to smooth it out all the way around. And that is what you want to do each and every time you have to attach two pieces together. That is the only way to guarantee that your pieces are going to stay together. If you do not slip and score, you might have pieces that come apart in the kiln. So I'm going to take a moment to attach the rest of my pieces, and I will check back in with you in just a second. All right, everyone, I have attached all of my pieces. I'm gonna lift it up really carefully to show you. I think everything looks nice and sturdy. I think everything looks as clean as I can make it. So the last thing that I'm going to do, the last thing that you are going to do, super carefully, and you can have a neighbor hold it for you if you need to, super carefully, you're gonna lift it up, and either on the inside or just on the little edge right there, I want you to write your name or initials, whatever's going to fit. I am writing S-T-U-V. I'm writing Stuve. I will definitely know that that is mine. All right, we are going to let these dry completely, and then I will put them in the kiln so that you can glaze them shortly. Great job, everybody.